Hello and welcome to Z Pandem with Divyasri Bagrodia. I am extremely honored to have Mr. Amish Tripathi here today. He is a leading Indian author and has several bestsellers to his credit. Mr. Tripathi is an Indian diplomat and columnist, and he is the director of Nehru Centre in London. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and welcome to Z Pandem.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
So, how do you think this pandemic will impact the way we consume the arts and culture, and how people experience arts and culture?
You'll find that times of dissonance, times of pandemics, times of war, times of change have led to a different kind of creativity, a different kind of literature, a different kind of art. I'm not necessarily saying it's better or worse, but often the most classic stuff emerges in difficult times. Let me give you an example. Among the most classic art emerged in Florence, right, in the early Renaissance era, the 15th, early 16th century. That was a time of a lot of chaos in Florence, by the way. It wasn't a peaceful time. But in that chaotic time, among the best art emerged. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. So often difficult times can work as a muse.
Right, so we will definitely face these changes, sir. And what opportunities do you see for India, with the emerging global narrative, in terms of the humanities, in terms of arts, in terms of literature, climate change, values, and human rights? So, what opportunities do you see for India in the future, in the long run?
Well, I think, India suffered a lot in the second millennium, common era. We suffered a lot of invasions, and perhaps our way of life was not in tune with what was the dominant philosophies of those days. But I believe in today's day, in the modern world, India's way of life is actually uniquely in tune with the modern zeitgeist, with modern philosophies. Let's think of environmentalism, for example. In many parts of the world, they don't care about the environment. I mean, they'll keep pumping oil, like there's no. In some parts of the world, like in the West, there is a movement towards environmentalism, but it's also opposed by many others as well. But in India, you'll find environmentalism is never a difficult sell for a politician, because our ancient culture, environmentalism is actually built into it. Because in our ancient culture, it is not believed that human beings are the greatest creation of God, and that nature was created by God as a resource for the use of many. In the Indian way, human beings are not the greatest creation of God. We are one among many. In the Indian way, nature is not a resource to be exploited. It is a goddess to be worshipped. So therefore, environmentalism in the Indian way is a very easy sell. So that's one way we are actually in tune with the modern needs. India is one of those rare cultures where you can be traditional and liberal at the same time. In most of the world, you have to pick between the two. You can either be traditional or you can be liberal. You can't be both. Right? In India, you can and be both, because our traditional texts are themselves very liberal. So I think India is actually well suited for the mode of the times, and our culture will probably have a resonance.
Right. So what words of wisdom do you have for Gen Z?
Gen Z is going to be growing up in a time where you cannot depend on old rules anymore.
Right.
Where you cannot depend on the system itself being relatively kind and gentle, which it was for the last 70 years.
Right.
It's a bit like, how our parents who lived through the independence struggle, or who lived through the Second World War. That generation, they had it very difficult. It was a tough time, right? And they had to survive through it. I suspect Gen Z, your generation, You guys are perhaps too young to realize this because you are going through this tough time. But you will live through tough times. What that will do is make you guys very tough.
Mhm.
And tough people build a better tomorrow. And this to me shows the attitude of Gen Z. You know, look, in difficult times you can have two approaches, right? People who are weak, there's one term I've heard in the West called snowflakes. I don't know if you've heard that. Who can't survive tough times. What they try and do is just bury their head in the sand. No,
Yeah,
just ignore it. These are difficult times. Don't talk to me. Don't trouble me. Don't trigger me. But the difficult times aren't going to disappear just because you don't look at them.
right.
Whereas what I like most about what you're doing at this initiative is actually looking at these difficult times in the eye and realizing that things will change dramatically and you have no control over what's going to happen. So you have to be tough. You have to be, to use Nassim Nicholas Taleb's term, anti-fragile
Yeah.
to survive times like this. And the first rule of being anti-fragile is accept the truth for what it is. And I love what you're doing because the first step to being tough is accepting the truth for what it is, not burying your head in the sand and pretending that the truth doesn't exist. So
Thank you
good
so
stuff.
much.
More power to you. More power to you,
Thank you
Divyasri.
so much. Thank you for joining us. So it was great chatting with you, and it means a lot that you could join us. So thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much.
My pleasure, Divyasri. You take care.